So, after being in an ayahuasca echo chamber for a while, you finally made a decision to come to an ayahuasca retreat. What now? How do you choose? In this video, I'm going to help you choose the right retreat for you. So, disclaimer, first of all, I run an ayahuasca retreat myself, so I will be somewhat biased in my explanation of what's good and what's not. However, if you end up booking somewhere else, I will not be offended. My name is Believ, and I run LaWayra, which is one of the best rated ayahuasca retreats in South America at the moment, with more than 600 5-star reviews on Google. We have so far hosted more than 2,000 people, so I do know a few things about ayahuasca and retreats. Why is the retreat choice so important? There are very few things more important than the choice of the retreat. It is very important because it is the difference between an amazing life-changing experience and a horror story you tell your friends. Same medicine served in two different places with different groups of people, different shamans, can yield an incredibly different results. So by choosing, you set yourself for success or failure. So what are the most important things you should consider when choosing the retreat? Number one, going to the basics. So you're going to an ayahuasca retreat, which means that most important thing is they have real ayahuasca. So when you're choosing a retreat, it's important for you to understand, where does their ayahuasca come from? Do they grow it themselves? Do they buy it somewhere? Do they maybe buy ingredients? Do they poach ayahuasca from the middle of the jungle? Do they farm ayahuasca? And most importantly, what are the admixtures? Is it pure ayahuasca? Does it have dangerous admixtures like toe or borrachero, as it's called here in Colombia? So ask those questions to the retreat owners. Next one is, we're talking about ayahuasca tradition, which comes from the jungle, comes from the Amazon. What is their connection to the tradition? Is a shaman that's going to give you the medicine an indigenous person? If not, has he trained under indigenous person? If he is indigenous, does he come from a lineage? Maybe his father is a shaman, maybe his grandfather was a shaman. Because not every indigenous person is a shaman. Now, as ayahuasca is getting more and more popular and more profitable, I've seen plenty of indigenous people wearing nice bracelets, but it's you and I wearing a stethoscope is not going to make you a doctor. Wearing a crown of feather will not make a random indigenous person into a shaman. The golden standard for a shaman is someone who's indigenous, someone who comes from the jungle, belongs to the tribe, comes from a lineage of shamans, grows and cooks their own ayahuasca. It just so happened to be, this is the standard we maintain here at LaWayra. My shaman at the moment, Fernando, comes from a lineage of 6 generations of shamans. But it doesn't mean that a non-indigenous person cannot be a shaman. I've worked with mestizo shamans, people part indigenous, part Colombian, that have had really good grasp on the tradition. They grew up working with the medicine. In that case, if your shaman is non-indigenous, at least find out for how long have they been working with this medicine. I've met plenty of people that, after having a life-changing experience with ayahuasca, want to become a shaman. They end up going somewhere, getting a short course and ending up with a diploma of the shaman, but it's meaningless. Becoming a shaman is something that takes a lifetime, or I would say at least 10 good years of practice. Next question you want to ask yourself is, where do you want to go to work with the medicine? Do you want to stay where you are? Can you find retreats or ayahuasca circles locally? Do you want to go somewhere else? In that case, do you want to go to Amazon, or just go to the Andes, or maybe go at the nice retreat center by the beach. Important things to consider in that case: is ayahuasca legal in your country? Will you go somewhere locally and you'll save some time on travel, but then you jeopardize security? Maybe you'll be paranoid because you know it's illegal and the police can come any moment. Maybe you'll jeopardize authenticity. Maybe the ayahuasca has moved through many hands on the way to arrive to this retreat center or ayahuasca circle. Maybe they don't even know where it comes from, because obviously it's hard to control the origin of the medicine when you are in US, for example. It might even be more expensive than, let's say, in some places in South America. Also, a lot of times in places where the medicine is illegal, it's very hard to control for the reputation, because you can't get a Google Maps location, for example, where you can collect reviews, because if you put your place on the Google Maps, then the police is going to show up. So if you're choosing a retreat locally and you cannot rely on lots of testimonials or reviews left online, at least make sure you meet someone from there or have a friend who went there and get certain that they are reputable. If you are choosing to travel to South America, for example, the questions you want to ask yourself: is the medicine traditional for that country? Like in case of Costa Rica and Mexico, where lots of retreats are these days, ayahuasca is not really endemic to those regions and it's brought there from other places. So you might feel like you're in a jungle, but at the same time, you're not really in a place where ayahuasca comes from. In case if you're wondering where does ayahuasca come from, it comes from northwestern Amazon. So Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, and Peru, they all have access to traditions that work with ayahuasca. Many times not just one tradition, but several. For example, here in Colombia, there are 5 different tribes that work with ayahuasca traditionally. If you do end up coming to the South America, to the countries where ayahuasca is from, then ask yourself, do you want to do a retreat in the mountains or in the jungle? There are benefits of drinking in the jungle. It's the most authentic experience. Just the noises of the jungle themselves will make you feel like you're having a psychedelic experience. However, if you are in the jungle, there are chances of things like malaria, there might be poisonous snakes, crocodiles, jaguars. So if that freaks you out, or maybe if you're a beginner, I would recommend you start with the retreat in the mountains. Just like in case of LaWayra, we are located close to the big city. We're surrounded by nature, as you can see behind me, beautiful countryside, but we're not in the jungle, so there are no risks of mosquito-borne diseases or dangerous predators. Another thing to consider when choosing a place is logistics. How will you get there? How will you get back? How many flights you need to take? What would be a red eye? Because let me tell you, traveling after a retreat, you might not want to have a red eye flight and spend 36 hours surrounded by tons of people in the airports and the flights. So try and choose a place where you can have 1 or 2 flights. Hopefully you don't need to spend too many hours in the airplane. Also, logistically speaking, it's important to know whether there's a hospital nearby to the retreat in case of a medical emergency. In our case, we have a hospital 8 minutes away, but so far we never had to use it. Next important question to ask yourself is, what about the price? Retreats that go anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 for a week. Can you afford it? Are you paying a fair price? Ask yourself, why so expensive or why so inexpensive? There are some retreat centers that charge close to $10,000 and they justify the expense with a bunch of unnecessary procedures that don't necessarily have anything to do with ayahuasca. So you might want to save some money and just avoid that. There are other places that are dirt cheap, but then they lack in amenities or staff. Sometimes, however, you can find affordable retreats that have very good amenities and big teams, like it is in our case. At the moment, our 1 week retreat is around $1,000. However, we do have a team of 35 people, have a beautiful retreat center, and behind me you might be able to see our Maloka. But once again, not everyone will feel like traveling to Colombia. On the topic of prices, it's also important to see how transparent is the price. If you go to the website and just says $3,000 and you get this and this, I like it personally. If you go to the website and it takes you like an hour to even find the price, chances are it is too high, or maybe there is some hidden costs. Personal pet peeve of mine is when people call it donation, not the price, trying to hide behind some vague spiritual terms. Ayahuasca retreat is still a business. You need to earn money to pay the workers. Growing ayahuasca is a very labor-intensive and thus expensive process as well, so the workers needs to be paid. So there's nothing wrong with having a clearly defined price, but make sure that the price includes accommodation, the price includes pickup from the city or pickup from the airport, the price includes food, and it includes ayahuasca, because there's some retreats that don't even include that in price, and in the end you look at the bottom line and it's times more expensive than what you imagined. Like for me as a European going to the US, for example, I'm always freaking out when you want to buy something for $1,000 and as the time comes for you to pay, it's $1,300 now because the taxes are added later. I might be wrong with the numbers, but that's how it feels like emotionally. Next thing you want to ask is about amenities. What do you have at the retreat? Is there a nice medicine house? Will there be hot water in the showers? Will there be electricity? Will you be provided with drinking water? Because going to work with the medicine is already a very challenging thing to do. It is hard to travel to another country. Work with ayahuasca is hard in itself. So if you have to control your own environment and constantly be worried about will you be able to drink water, where are you going to get your next meal from, it's not optimal. It is better if your experience is all-inclusive and you're completely taken care of by the team. Next thing you might want to ask the retreat owners is, what is their take on integration? What do they do to help you not just have an amazing ayahuasca experience, but also remember it and then take it back with you to your life and actually have a life-changing experience? Do they provide you with any group integration? Is there maybe some form of written integration aid, like an integration journal we provide to our visitors? Do they work with integration coaches you can then use to follow up and go deeper in your process? If they just don't know it and ignore it completely, it is a red flag, in my opinion. Other red flags that come to mind is if a retreat center guarantees you with a certain outcome and they tell you, just pay us for the small price of $5,000, you're going to get a such and such outcome or a result or a healing, it is a red flag. Ayahuasca is an incredibly powerful medicine, and I've seen hundreds of stories of people healing. However, it's really hard to predict how much time it's going to take. And normally, it's more time than you can imagine. And it does not just include the ceremonies itself, it also includes the work that you have to do post-retreat. So if a retreat center tells you, just pay me this amount of money and you're going to get this kind of result, it's a red flag. Run away. Make sure you look into the reputation of the place. The best place to look for reviews are places where the owners of the retreat have no power over the reviews. For example, if somebody left you a bad Google review, there's nothing you can do to remove it. Or places like Reddit, where people can anonymously leave testimonials and reviews. It's easy to have a website full of hand-picked amazing testimonials and reviews, but there might be dark things. There might be people with very bad experiences. As a retreat owner myself, I can tell you that I will probably not post a 1-star review on my landing page. It's just not a natural thing to do. So if you see testimonials that retreat operators themselves have chosen, they'll always be the best of the best. However, at our Google reviews, we have hundreds of reviews I can't control, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. But at least you can read through them and see what is real, what is not real, because let's be honest, a lot of time 1-star reviews are also not completely rational. So make sure a place has a good reputation and they value their reputation. So this sums up my short guide on how to choose an ayahuasca retreat. Of course, I'd love for you to come here to LaWayra, because I do believe that we have all that in check. However, if you do want to go somewhere else, I have a great list of questions to ask to the customer support or people you're chatting with online. So I hope you have a great retreat wherever it is you go. It will change your life, and I hope this was useful. If you like this video, subscribe and leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one.